goes a flock of swans flying by.
Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be repotting my cherry tree. Here is a look at my cherry tree. It is a Romeo dwarf sour cherry, and last year it flowered and I got fruit on it, and I ate the fruit and it was quite delicious. I last repotted my cherry tree 2 years ago, so let's go back in time now and have a look at that repotting and check out what the root system looked like 2 years ago. I bought this tree from Canadian Tire last year, and it was too late in the year to repot it, so it's just been sitting in this nursery pot all summer and winter, and today I can finally work on the root system. There's a close-up of the root system so you can see all the fine roots coming out. Quite nice. So I don't know if this tree will remain on the slant like this. It all depends on what surface roots they are. I saw a V formation of swans flying overhead this morning. There had to be about at least 25 swans in the group, the formation. It was quite impressive. Beautiful white birds against the blue sky. Yeah, it's a sight you don't see too often, but I see it every, I guess every year here. You see swans flying overhead. They kind of make a unique noise that fairly easy to identify. Okay, I think I'm ready to start washing the roots. All right, here I go, washing the root system. Here's the root system on the cherry tree. Looking quite nice. So let's start the repruning. All the roots are coming out from pretty well one plane. Now, I could improve it. I noticed here I've got one root above the other, so if I wanted to use the lower root, I could, and I think I will, because my root plane is down here. This one's a little high, so I'm going to take that one off. Like that. All these ones, they go quite deep down, so I want to prune them off shorter. Like that. All the ones, there's one growing underneath here. I'm going to get rid of that one entirely. And I think that's good. I think that's the start of a good radial root system. We are back to present day time now, March 2024. So my first task will be to get the tree out of the pot. All right, I'll loosen the tree up in the pot. I've got the front of the tree marked here, but that could change. And let's get the tree out of the pot. There it is. So I can see a lot of roots that have grown in the soil. It's not root bound or anything, but I just want to get all these roots sorted out once again. I like to think of the roots just like the branches of your tree. You want structure and ramification, pruning for direction and taper. So the root structure down below the soil kind of mirrors what's above the soil. You want to develop both your roots and the top of the tree at the same time. I'll begin combing out the soil from the roots now. And we'll see what kind of roots have developed over the last 2 years. A few weeds have developed, I can see that. So I'm just combing out the soil in a radial pattern. Just, gently teasing out the soil from the roots. So I left the fruit on it quite a long time until I ate it, and it was quite sweet. So I think if I had picked the fruit a little earlier in the season, it would have been sour. So I was glad I kind of left it on the tree all through the summer until fall when I ate it. And it was very sweet and delicious, the cherries. I only got about 5 cherries on it, but that's fine. At the moment, my priority is just to prune the tree for structure, get the roots sorted out, and then, someday in the future, I hope You know, the tree's covered in flowers and then cherries as it all strengthens up. So kind of strange weather today. It's we get 5 minutes of rain, then 5 minutes of sunshine, and it's back to rain. And right now, it is back to rain. So I can see already, you know, there's an unbalanced surface root system. There's a big, thick root here. I'm sure there'll be some, you know, sorting out of the roots once again. There always is something you can do to the root system. Julian and I just went to Canadian Tire to get some oil for his Fiat. And I got a Land Rover model. Quite a nice one. So I can use that in one of my Penjings, Socotra Island or something like that. So that's kind of cool. I like that. So back to combing out the roots. Yeah, I think it was good timing for this repot. The roots aren't so packed in here that they're, you know, too tangled and hard to comb. It's just about right. Lots of root growth. So I'm quite happy with the 2-year repotting interval for most trees. 3 years I think is leaving it a little too long, and 4 years and above is just too much when you're developing your root base. For a refined tree that's, you know, growing slowly and carefully, you know, you can leave them longer between repotting. But when you're developing your root system, you know, you have to do a lot of correction work while the tree's young, getting those radial roots balanced and going in a good direction. It really, you'll end up with a really good looking root base in the future if you keep up with your root pruning. So this part of the root pruning is what takes the most time, I find. You know, carefully getting the soil out and combing your roots out. Trying to minimize, you know, tearing roots. So it's just something you have to do slowly and carefully, and eventually you get them sorted out and you get all the soil out so you can actually do your root pruning. And you can do this with water. You can use a hose that helps loosen it up, but you still have to comb out the roots and untangle them. So it's not just a matter of spraying your roots. This is part of the, you know, sorting the roots out is combing them out. Getting rid of all the tangles. And you'll lose a certain amount of fine roots. You can see there's some in the soil here, but not, generally not a significant amount if you're careful. And most of these roots will get pruned off eventually, but it's always nice to see what you have first before you get into the root pruning. That's what I find. If you just go blindly in and start cutting roots, you're not really, well, you're doing it blindly. You're kind of just leaving it up to luck. So it's always nice to see what you have before you start the root pruning. That's what I find anyway. Yeah, see, there's a chunk of kind of tangled roots that came out. So I saw the new Dune 2 movie in IMAX, and oh my goodness, the sound system on IMAX is incredible. The visuals are incredible. I've read the book twice, Dune, and I'm not a diehard fan of the Dune book. I like it. I think it's well written, but it's a bit of a, I wouldn't call it, you know, true science fiction. I would say it's a mixture of science fiction and fantasy. I mean, there's a lot of, well, it's kind of like King Arthur and his knights. It's, you know, instead of dragons, you have sandworms, and there's all these fighting of royalty and power, and so it's not
what I'd call true science fiction. There's science fiction elements in it for sure, but I certainly enjoyed the movie. It's a long movie. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes, and I didn't want it to end in the theater. And as soon as it finished, I thought, oh, I want to see it again. Yeah, there's not many movies that, you know, I come out of the theater and my first thought is I want to see that again. But Dune 2 was like that. As soon as I got out of the theater, I knew I have to see it again. And I think the last movie I saw like that was maybe Blade Runner. Star Wars was like that for me. I think I watched Star Wars in the theater 7 times. I just couldn't get enough of it. And I think Dune Part 2 is like that also. Dune Part 1, I enjoyed it. It's not really, you know, there's a story to it, but a lot of it is setting up the characters and the situation, and it's not a complete movie. It's definitely Part 1. So I think if you watch both movies back to back, I think that's the complete story and movie experience. So, but after I watched Part 1, I knew there was Part 2 coming, and so I was very satisfied with Part 1 as far as a Dune movie. Now, I like the original David Lynch version. I think you have to have read the book to appreciate that movie and know what's going on, because I think if you haven't read the book and you try and watch David Lynch's Dune movie, I think you'll be totally lost, possibly, unless you see it multiple times and slowly figure out what's going on. But yeah, Dune Part 1 and 2 by Denis Villeneuve, it's the real deal. It's a good story. It's really well filmed. I personally liked all the acting in it. A lot of people complain about it, but I thought it was quite good.
Okay, so I have got the tree bare rooted. I'm going to wash it, clean up, and then we'll come back for the root pruning. All right, here I am at my root washing station. Try and get all the old soil out, clean the roots up. Here is a look at my root base. So one thing I noticed on this side of the tree, there's a bit of an undercut here. And it may be because I have a dead root here that hasn't thickened up. Oh, this one's dead for sure. It's just breaking off. So I'm just cleaning out these dead bits. Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate, but you know, it happens. I've got some bulges here where a root has come around and wrapped around itself, so that'll have to be fixed. This root is dead here. Get rid of that. Let me get rid of this dead root here. Get rid of a bit of this flaky bark here. Just kind of cleaning it up to see what's going on. I think this root is dead. This one's dead. So it looks like a lot of those surface roots I left on last time died. I guess maybe I just pruned them off too short and they didn't recover, and I just grew new roots instead. So this one survived. These ones did. So that's got it cleaned up a bit. Now I've got to address this root here. You can see it comes out from the tree, curls around, and then up and around itself. If I remove this, I'm going to lose
you know, all these roots coming off of it, but it's something I have to clean up. So I'm going to slice. Oh, okay. I think I thought it came from here, but I don't think it does. I think it comes from somewhere else. Oh my goodness. Where does it come from? It comes from around here. So I'll snip it off here. Getting rid of that section of the roots. Look at that. Looks like an octopus. Okay. So that got rid of that strange root. You can see there's some stubs of dead roots here. Just going to take those off. There's a root here that's growing back in underneath the tree. I'm going to snip that off. There's one growing straight down here I'm going to remove. And one growing back in here. I'll get rid of. Yeah, so some good stuff happening with this root system and some stuff that's not quite so good. Just untangle this root. There's a root here that starts from way back here and goes a strange direction that I've got to get rid of. I think it's fused a bit here. Well, we'll just cut it away. And this part of it too. There, I got it out. Okay. There's a root here sticking straight up. I'm going to remove this upper part of it. Yeah, so I'm left with a very one-sided root system, which is too bad. I'm not sure why that side died off. I'm wondering, you know, it's possible this is a grafted tree. I'm not sure. Like, you can see this is dead here, but this is living. It's very interesting. You can see how it's healing around this dead wood here. Yeah, so I guess this side of the root system died off. You can even see here there's a bit of dead wood on this root. Well, I always have to work with what I have, so I'm going to see what's going on here. There's a root that goes kind of down in around here. I'll snip it off here. I'm trying to remove that. Like that. Yeah, I initially thought this root system was going really well, but it's not doing so well. However, as I said, you know, you work with what you get. Take that one off. So I'm looking for root direction now. I just snip this one off shorter. There's a lot of roots that are going down into the soil here. Like this one needs to be pruned off shorter to here. I did go quite severe on the root system with that initial repot from 2 years ago, and maybe this is a case of where I went too hard on it. Take that one growing up there off. yeah, where everything didn't work out that well. So untangle this one. There's a root here that kind of goes straight down. I'll prune that part of it away. Like that, keeping my radial roots. Prune these long ones back. Now here on this root, you can see I've got some good surface roots here, and then it kind of goes down, so I'm going to do a big cut here. It is a very thick root. And prune off that entire part of the root system to get a better flow to my roots. Prune these ones that are going straight down away. This one could be shortened. This one's going straight down. Get rid of that. This one's going a funny direction. I'll shorten it. Shorten all these ones going down into the soil. Kind of flattening out the bottom of my root system. Okay, now getting down there. I've got kind of a root above, one below. I'm going to take this one, kind of crosses underneath this other root. I'm going to remove that part of it. And I think that's going to be about it for this repotting. I think, you know, I've done as much as I can on the root system. Yeah, that's a lot of dieback there. I'll have to check the original video. Maybe that was a bit like that when I got the tree. I'm not sure. But it's unusual to have a section of it die off. Okay, that is it. I'm going to plant the tree once again. And I think right now it's in this plastic pot, which is a good size for the tree. But I think I'll see if I can find a little better pot for it.
Generally, I always hope my root system improves with each repotting. And on this tree, well, it made some progress, but it also lacked progress in some areas. So yeah, it's a little disheartening to see that section of it die off, but as I said, you know, you just keep working with what you get and try and improve it slowly into the future. I found an old ancient terracotta pot. I think that will do. It's a step up from a plastic pot. It's a good size for the tree. So I'll add my base layer of soil and get the tree planted. All right, it's time to repot the tree. This is in a round pot, so the front doesn't matter, but the previous front now has that deadwood section on it, which isn't very attractive. So I think, you know, the new front will have to be somewhere in this area. I'm going to bury this trunk up to here, hoping new roots form from this area to eventually get an even radial root base. So here I go. I'll plant the tree. So I've got the tree positioned. I'm just going to, you know, get the roots sorted out. Make sure there's no kind of tangled ones. That looks good. And I'll add the soil around the tree now. So you can see I'm burying it fairly deeply in the pot, hoping I get roots forming from that living part of the tree. You can see the soil just flows around the roots, just like the sand in the movie Dune. Flows and moves. So that's pretty good. Now you can see this part is still exposed, so I'm going to build up a bit of a mound around the tree just to cover that section up. So here I go with that. Okay, so I'll water the tree and then I'll put a stone on here just to hold the soil in place and hold the tree in place.
And it helps stop a bit of evaporation too. So let's get the tree watered.
All right, here I go with the water.
Draining really well that soil.
I'll place some stones around the base of the tree here, like this. I think that's enough. So you can see the tree secured in the pot. These stones will hold that soil around that, that dead section of the tree. Maybe it'll generate new roots in there, maybe it won't. Time will tell. I'll spin the tree around just so I have a record of what it looked like at this point in time. So here is the current front, coming around to the right hand side, to the back, to the left hand side, and back to the front. I went back inside and I checked the last video on the repotting of this tree, and I did some pretty severe root pruning. If it was a maple or something, or an elm, it would have grown really well, but I guess a cherry tree doesn't generate roots quite as easily as some of the other species, so I hope I didn't go too hard on the roots today. I guess time will tell. So yeah, I think the lesson I've learned is on a cherry tree, don't go too severe on the roots, or they'll just die back instead of generating new roots around the cut point. So yeah, so that is my cherry tree potted up for 2024. I hope it does well after this root pruning and continues to grow into a better and better tree into the future. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.